Well, this is welcome, and so I'll say welcome to Luminarias, to our agency. This is to give you a little bit of an orientation of who we are and a taste, right? There'll be other series of slides and presentations that you're going to get, but this is the first one. So again, my name is Jose Cardenas, psychologist, clinical psychologist, and CEO of Luminarias. So we're going to um, move on. All right, so as it says, who are we? Okay, Luminarias was started by myself after working decades with underserved population, the Latino population primarily, in actually my hometown in the San Fernando Valley. I'm one of 11 children of parents who were born in Temastian, Jalisco, Mexico, and that's part of my heritage. And so, as with many of the clients that we have, I didn't know much until much later that I didn't speak English until I went to school. And so Spanish is my first language, but by the time I was in high school, you wouldn't think that. I hadn't practiced it that much because I would just practice it with my parents. But as with many of our clients, again, speaking English primarily throughout the day at school, etc., and with my friends. Okay, my parents worked the fields, and they came here after they were married, and they had all of their 11 children here, starting up in the Stockton area and then moving down here where they had the second half of the 11 in the San Fernando Valley. Okay, so my parents didn't have much more than a first and second grade education, so they very much valued the opportunity that their children would have here in the United States. And so what they will do is promote that. And so most of us have, not only graduated from high school, but gone on to college, myself getting a doctorate. And so they let us know that, you could work in the fields or work really hard with your hands, but you can also work, as they say, smarter, not harder. And so education is very important. And also within that education, we understand the challenges of biculturalism, or being of dual histories, and being Mexican American, right, growing up here, and so those issues. And so, as well as me personally, my looking back and seeing about what had me, decide to become a psychologist and do therapy was because, of a death in the family. One of my older brothers, who I looked up to very much, and how it kind of traumatized all of us in the family, and how I don't think we dealt with it the best we can. But looking back, there would have been better ways to handle it, but we didn't know that. So we just moved on and did the best we could. So after graduating, from there, I had my clinical license as a psychologist, and then I managed and worked with developing the largest school-based mental health clinic in the country in 1993. And so I've been, since early on, working with this population and working with schools, and knowing the importance of and the opportunity it is to treat children at their schools and school-based treatment. At that time, it was all face-to-face, right? As well as, working with that, and the opportunity there is to do a lot of work as groups there. However, I found that once I left that agency, and we had been doing great, they dropped doing the group treatment. I was very disappointed to hear that, but that's what happens, right? Certain people don't appreciate it, and even though it's working, they go back to, well, we don't do that. So then I decided to start my own nonprofit in 2014, and that's when we began Luminarias Institute Inc. And we've been focused on treating the multicultural, multilingual population, and using those methodologies in order to maximize mental health services, and delivering these services to the underserved population of the Northeast San Fernando Valley primarily. And so we have various sites now and where we're working. And so, from that center in San Fernando High School, where I actually went to school, and then now with our agency, working with these different agencies and having an impact on our community. And so my family in particular, we've been very fortunate to have a legacy in terms of a school named after my parents, Marian Andres Cardenas in Van Nuys. and much to my brother, Tony Cardenas, and a friend of ours who's also Alex Padilla, who also understands the immigrant situation and the need to treat this population. So we now work with these various schools and agencies, and in order to provide the services. So we're now providing all these agencies and various others that want to work with us. And so we understand and are working with the stigma, and that's one of the main issues we work with, is challenging that the stigma and the double standards of growing up in the family that has these issues going on. However, it's very important to continue that work and to train new persons. So we work primarily with these, if you notice, these agencies, their charter schools, etc. And so the idea being to work with them because they're smaller. And since COVID hit, we had to change our model somewhat and go hybrid in terms of we haven't been able to be on campus. We'll see when we can do that again. But at this point, we're doing everything through the telehealth format. And that's what we're going to be focusing on in terms of continuing to develop that and do the best we can to continue to give persons the opportunity to use this new modality for the field, which is telehealth. And so we give direct access with them. And then we prepare them for, what treatment that will probably be happening in the future, right? And so that's where things have changed and things have grown in not only the field, but with our agency as well. So our mission, so we want to train you, the next generation of clinicians, right? And being bicultural, right? And not only knowing, but knowing how to deal with and work with the specific needs of the Latinx community, and to be culturally competent, and again, to work with the underserved population and working with and seeing about confronting the barriers that clients are seeking in terms of remaining engaged in therapy. And very important, we provide services to those entities with which we have MOUs, no matter their insurance. So we attempt to, and it's very important that we bill when we can. However, if we can't bill and they don't have insurance or they have a copay, that's not an issue. That's not going to be a reason we're going to for not treating persons. That's not how we do it. Okay, so working with all those various different issues that are happening with the population, children who are dealing with school issues in terms of immigration issues, family trauma issues, bullying in school, anxiety, depression, etc., and all the different ways that it shows itself with those children that we work with in elementary, middle, and high school. And also we do have, as it shows on the previous slide, with LII Mission College and some adult women who are in the transitional program in La Posada in the downtown area. So there's various issues, etc., that we work with, lots of trauma working. So our vision, a brighter tomorrow beginning today. So we want to help our clients have that brighter tomorrow. They deal with the barriers as early as possible to deal with their issues and be more available, more present, and be able to take advantage of all that's there. So the culture of our agency, if you've seen our website, the collectivist model, right? The group, right, is so important. And as Latinos, that's how we are brought up. This is what a part of our mentality, as with other persons of color, Asian community, the persons of color, the African American community. Okay, and so that different than as it shows the Western culture, where it's so individual. It's about the individual rights, etc. And so, but being able to look at that you're part of the system, and that's very important. Okay, so again, as it says, the Latino struggle to healthily meld the individualist and collectivist cultures into a win-win for Latino that is an amalgam of these two cultures. So working within that reality and having it, be something that can be successfully dealt with, so that we have cultural competency, the knowledge, etc., dealing with all these issues about subcultures. It is different being from Mexico versus Central America versus the islands, the Caribbean, South America, etc. And as we know now, there's more and more persons who are within the Latino community. A parent that's Mexican, a parent that's Salvadorian, a parent that's Central American and Peruvian, right? So the issue of multilingualism, English, Spanish, and again, the dialects and those nuances, colloquialisms, etc., that's important to know, so the person that we're dealing with feel understood. And so they help us also grow in terms of our being able to appreciate who they are, where they come from, etc. And again, evidence-based practices, there's literature, there's more and more data, and we're a part of gathering that data as well with our clients, so we can, show that this works, and this is some of the evidence-based, ways of going through and helping our community due to issues of culture and ethnicity, etc. The agency, all right, we want to increase the accessibility of mental health services to the underserved populations, that I stated before, and actively combat, very important, the stigma associated with seeking and utilizing treatment, right? And so we want to really focus on that, and so being able to do that. And so basically that, again, we don't charge a copay. We're a training institution. We want to train tomorrow's therapists today, advocating community-based mental health services, flexible to adapt the needs of the client, school-based, group, family, telehealth, equine therapy, which is very unique, and not only working with our clients, but also their parents and their family members. And so looking at all the resources that we can tap into and have our clients become engaged with to help their family. So the agency staffs and roles, as I said, I'm the CEO. COO is Benjamin Cardenas, that most persons have been in contact with through our vetting process of getting to know us and working on getting an interview, etc., before being able to work together and become a staff member, practicum student with us. Administrative assistant, we have Elizabeth Rubio. We also have a new person, Jessica Jerome, that's helping as well. Supervisors, clinically, Liliana Hernandez, marriage family therapist, licensed, Yvette Cardenas, licensed clinical social worker, and Nahid Dawood, licensed marriage family therapist. And so all of them are bilingual, bicultural, and Liliana and Yvette, being their second language is Spanish, and Nahil is Farsi, and very similar culture, in fact, her Middle Eastern background. And all our trainees, graduate level mental health practicum students, and so everyone is under the license of one of our supervisors and expected to carry a full caseload, right? And we also have volunteer therapists to come that work with us. They have a limited caseload. They're kind of getting some experience in the field and help with us with doing a lot of psychoeducation, et cetera, in the community. And then we have undergrads as well that do that, and they're more working on helping with administrative tasks, and they're also direct supervised. Everyone's supervised to do the issues that we deal with. And so that's how we are set up, okay? Now, something new that we've added is the student self-assessment as you begin working with us, and because throughout your time with us, you'll be being evaluated. So we ask that you do this on your own to see where are you, what do you think you are in this beginning state of your practicum experience, and some of these areas will points maybe NA, not applicable, but being able to see where you're at to allow you to see where you began, where you then went to, right? In these different areas, we don't do a whole lot of crisis management, but that happens some. We don't have 5150 power, et cetera, and learning these different modalities and treatment planning, as it says here, working with how to create not only diagnose, but, client treatment plan, where you're looking at these different issues that are coming up and diversity issues, right? So being able to see that, those differences between the clients and between oneself and one's clients, right? Ethics and law issues, right? Very important, all right? And how they work in the real life, day-to-day practicum experience. Looking at these things about how do you organize your time, right? How you present yourself, because, in dealing with clients, their parents, staff members in schools or different agencies, you represent not only the agency, you represent the field, mental health. So being able to be aware of that and how do you come across. And then it's so very important how you use your supervision, right? Not just the supervision time that's scheduled, the individual supervision, the group supervision, but also the in-between time of being able to take the feedback and utilize it and ask for more feedback, for more input. So again, being able to look at all these areas, so we ask that you think, where am I at this time with this? And where that helps us see where are your strong points, right? And where are you in terms of where some areas that you need to work on and beef up. Okay, so everyone here is working under your supervisor's license, all right? And so very important that's why they give directives, right? They're not necessarily suggestions, it's very important. There's suggestions, directives, while the client is your supervisor's client. It's their license that you're working under, and just very similarly, just as, at some point, for a different reason or different issues are going on, it may very well be that a client is moved or you're moved from one client to another, even though you feel like, well, I don't want to, or I don't understand it. To be able to see, it's about what is in the best interest of the client, and your supervisor is going to be, making those decisions, right? So there's the primary supervisor, and there are other supervisors are available as well. So there's no need to wait 1 week I got to wait till next Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day it is to meet with my supervisor. In between, you can access other supervisors and persons who can give guidance and direction, right? And that being different, right, from the field site supervisor at your graduate program or your graduate school, where they're overseeing your experience, and that, however, but the clients are our clients, and we are the ones, your supervisors here are the ones that are directly know more about the case and what's happening and how to best manage and guide you with that area. Okay, very important. HIPAA, right? Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, confidentiality, etc. Right, the privacy of every person, be it if they're seeing a dentist, a general practitioner, a therapist. So all this is protected information, and very important that we're aware that whenever we're speaking about with a client or about a client, that is anyone able to listen in and discern who you're talking about. You can speak in different ways, however, it's just as long as we're maintaining that privacy of the individual. So being able to be very careful, and that's why we give out certain information, certain emails and phone numbers, etc., that are able to use, that are HIPAA compliant, just as our therapy is telehealth and it's HIPAA compliant ways, because there are certain formats that, what's the difference? Well, they're not HIPAA compliant. There's certain modalities or way of having that telehealth that is actually very easily hacked or accessed. So there's certain ones that are and that's what we use, the ones that have already been vetted and are good. So again, sticking with this because it's so important, all right? So that's where it's like using a phone. Yes, it's different being in your car or in your house or in your apartment, but versus being in a public place, right? And so being able to it's like, do I even take this call right now because I'm in a public area, right? Yeah. So texting as well, all these different areas and issues, emailing, etc., and who do we consult and how do we consult and through which emails, which mode. All those are very important of being clear. And then again, one thing we say over and over, if you're not sure, run it by your supervisor, right? Run it by your supervisor. They'll give you the guidance and the direction, right? So last but not least, yes, we're all mandated reporters, right? And so and again, various issues come up. They might be a gray area, etc. Oftentimes that's how it is, and that's why it's about any suspicion, right? And what information do we have? We are reporters. We're not necessarily investigators. However, we are mandated reporters, and there's issues come up, and that's why it's very important to have access to your supervisor or other supervisors and not wait, so that we can clarify, do we need to act on this immediately, or do we even need to act on this? Do we make do we call the 800 number, the hotline? Do we make a report, or do we make an inquiry call, right? So that would be something to really be clear about and ask those questions and go through the supervision process, right? So being able to do that. So here is, or if you have questions, etc. Hopefully you've been writing some things down, but you can go back and review this and then ask us questions if you want some clarity on something like, the telehealth. There's BBS rules about that, right? And we're aware of those, and we know what they are, and that's how we set up how we do what we do to be in compliance with all of those. So again, welcome to our agency, and hopefully there's going to be challenges and opportunities to learn and to grow in areas that perhaps you didn't even imagine. But hopefully your experience here with Luminarias is one that you look upon afterward and say, I'm glad I was there. I really learned a lot. It really challenged me. And hopefully you take away from it as well that the feeling of knowing you've helped persons grow, right, deal with their issues, and be better for it, because as we said before, in terms of wanting them to, have a brighter tomorrow, right? Have things be healthier, better, realistic, etc. So, all right, that's it, and welcome again.